This message is sponsored by Raycon. You know that feeling when something you already love comes back even better? Evil Dead 2, Silent Hill 2, Nirvana's Nevermind? Same greatness, just upgraded in all the right ways. That's exactly how I felt when I heard today's sponsor, Raycon, brought back one of their fan favourites, the Everyday Earbuds Classic. This new and improved version comes with active noise cancellation, the one feature that I always wanted. And now that it's here, these puppies have barely left my ears. I use them constantly, when I'm editing videos, tuning out traffic noise, or walking around the city listening to podcasts. They keep the world out, and the sound locked in. Then, if I need to be aware of what's going on around me, I just switch to awareness mode with a single tap. To top it off, this new version comes with 8 hours of playtime, 32 with the case, and gel tips that actually stay comfortable, even on the umpteenth hour of your YouTube horror binge. I've tried the expensive brands, and Raycon sound rivals them at just half the price. Go to buyraycon.com/masquerade to get 20% off the Everyday Earbuds Classic. Brought to you by Raycon. If you ventured into the deep recesses of Instagram in 2017, you may well have encountered this haunting face. Sunken cheeks, corpse-like skin, an upturned nose, and eyes that seem far too big for the skull they sit in. This was 19-year-old Fatima Kishvand, an Iranian influencer who began posting under the pseudonym Sahar Tabar. Her early content wasn't anything unusual, and mostly consisted of selfies and glam shots. But slowly, something changed. The young woman seemingly became obsessed with extreme body modifications. With each new set of photos, her face became more angular, more uncanny, and by the end of the year, she looked more like a Tim Burton character than a real person. And that was completely by design. Fatima had a strong desire to look like her fashion icon, the corpse bride, and had undergone numerous cosmetic surgeries to achieve these results. Now you may be thinking that the horror of this entry has to do with Fatima's transformation, but the reality is that her whole appearance was a facade. As she would later admit, she had used makeup, filters and Photoshop to alter her face. For Fatima, Sahar Tabar was nothing more than a character, a creative outlet to experiment, express herself, and build a fanbase. And it worked. At its peak, her account had amassed an impressive 486,000 followers. Tabloids began running stories about her, stating that she had had over 50 surgeries. Western media dubbed her the zombie Angelina Jolie, a name that captured people's imaginations and drew more traffic to her page. Her posts were flooded with comments, accusations, and morbid fascination. For many, she was yet another internet curiosity. For others, a nightmare come to life. But for the government, she was a problem. Unfortunately for Fatima, Iran's online sphere is tightly controlled. At the time, Instagram was the only social media platform still operating, the last digital bastion where people could express themselves with relative freedom. But the last thing the government wanted was for its people, especially its young women, to be doing that. On October 5th, 2019, Fatima's Instagram account vanished. Her fans were stunned to learn that she had been arrested in Tehran on charges of blasphemy, instigating violence, illegally acquiring income, violating the national dress code, and encouraging young people to commit corruption. A judiciary official even told the Tasnim news agency that her vulgarity and promotion of abnormality are a threat to public morals. 3 days later, Instagrammers Sarah Afsharian, Sarah Shariat Madari, and Niloufar Moutier were arrested. Fatima and these other influencers hadn't done anything to attack the government, but their online personas were enough to bring the hammer down. Soon after, on October 22nd, a state-run TV interview aired. Fatima appeared veiled, her face blurred out. The presenters introduced her as a zombie, suffering from a, quote, abnormal personality and mental state. They pointed out that her parents were divorced, implying that broken families make broken children. Clearly under duress, Fatima recited a confession, explaining how social media had ruined her life and how she regretted chasing fame. At the time, the televised shaming of Instagrammers had become a common occurrence in Iran, and many believe that the government was using it to lay the groundwork for a complete social media blackout. In December 2020, Fatima was sentenced to 10 years in prison. While behind bars, she contracted COVID and came very close to losing her life. Her lawyers begged for a temporary release so that she could get proper medical care, but their words fell on deaf ears. After 14 months behind bars, half of Fatima's charges were dropped. Her jail sentence was converted into bail. Following her release, she returned to state TV, where her real face was publicly revealed for the first time. As you can see from this unaltered footage, though she clearly had some work done, she was far from the undead caricature that the internet had come to know. Again, she expressed regret, saying that she had gone into prison as Sahar Tabar, but emerged once again as Fatima Kishvand, implying that her social media days were behind her. She blamed her pursuit of fame on mental illness, and hinted that she had been pushed into the role by the media frenzy around her. She praised the judge as merciful, and said that she now wanted to live a quiet life, away from cameras. Thus far, it's been a very quiet life. After that interview, Fatima vanished yet again. This has led millions to wonder what became of her. Had she truly been set free? Was she still a political prisoner? Or had she, like her account, been permanently deleted? To this day, Iran continues to employ extensive monitoring of social media. Between 2011 and 2023, at least 1,300 people were arrested for posting online content, mostly because they showed themselves dancing or casually dressed. Many of them received hefty fines, prison sentences, and even lashes. There's no doubt that Fatima's pictures were uncanny, but the true terror lies in what happened after she posted them, when she was harshly punished for the simple act of expressing herself outside the rigid, arbitrary rules that Iran imposes on personal social media use. When the state turned her into a scapegoat and a spectacle. She wasn't the monster. The system was. Instagram was banned in Iran in 2022. It's currently back online, but only temporarily. I first came upon this entry in a recent Pharrell Maguire video. He covers dark internet topics from around the globe. They're all really well researched, and he has a unique presenting style and a really calming voice, which I think suits this type of content perfectly. Be sure to check him out through the links down below. Doppelgangers, mirror image lookalikes so uncanny they could fool even your closest relative, have long been a staple of folklore. In myth and superstition, encountering one isn't just strange, it's extremely ominous. Crossing paths with your double is said to herald great misfortune, with some stories going so far as to say that we all have an evil twin out there, searching for us, hunting for us, with a goal to end our lives. But those are of course just stories. With 8 billion people walking the earth, it's inevitable that a few of them will look near identical to you. The odds of you bumping into a psycho version of yourself is low. But what if, when you did, it wasn't just a funny coincidence, wasn't a mere bad omen? What if it was a death sentence? On the afternoon of August 16th, 2022, Shahraban K., a German Iraqi beautician, left her family home in Munich, telling her parents that she was going to rendezvous with her estranged husband. The pair had separated, but were apparently meeting to straighten out their fraught relationship. By nightfall, the 23-year-old still hadn't returned home. Calls to her went to voicemail. Messages went unread. Concerned, her loved ones decided to search for her. Driving through Ingolstadt, the Bavarian city where she went to meet her ex, they spotted something chilling. Shahraban's black Mercedes, parked awkwardly near a wooden stretch on the banks of the Danube. At first, it was just the sight of the car that made their stomachs tighten, but then they noticed it. A dark, viscous stain running down from the passenger's side door. Peering through the window, they saw what looked like a person slumped unnaturally across the back seat. Whoever it was, wasn't moving. Officers arrived and forcibly gained access to the vehicle. The lifeless young woman on the back seat was drenched in blood. More than 50 stab wounds covered her and were concentrated around the neck, upper torso, and head. Indeed, her face had been savagely mutilated, as if someone wanted to destroy not just her life, but her identity. They ran the license plates, and confirmed that the car was registered to Sharaban K, but they still needed confirmation. Thus, they solemnly explained the situation to Sharaban's parents and asked them to identify their daughter's body. Even though the young woman's face had been obliterated, they took one look at her hair, her build, her olive skin, and her clothes, and tearfully said that there was no question about it. The victim was Sharaban. Suspicion, of course, fell on Sharaban's ex-husband, supposedly the last person to see her alive. However, that lead soon evaporated when the coroner dropped a bombshell. DNA and fingerprint analysis confirmed that the body didn't match Sharaban K. Through forensic testing, the victim was later identified as Khadija O, a 23-year-old Algerian beauty blogger from the Heilbronn area. She had vanished the same day her body had been found. The resemblance between her and Sharaban was striking. They had the same long dark hair, same complexion, makeup style, fashion sense, facial structure and age. The authorities started hearing rumours that Sharaban had been seen driving around Ingolstadt and entering a pizzeria. Less than 48 hours later, detectives made an announcement. They had arrested Sharaban K and her Kosovan boyfriend, Shakir K, on suspicion of homicide. After taking the pair into custody, investigators began looking through their phones. They soon learned that Sharaban had created numerous fake Instagram accounts and posed as men and women to DM strangers. Not just any strangers though. Girls who looked like her. In the weeks before the murder, investigators say that Sharaban contacted Khadija using a string of fake profiles. First, she posed as a man connected to the music industry, claiming Khadija had the perfect look for an upcoming rap video for the artist Luna. She even gave details about the supposed shoot in Offenburg. Khadija, suspicious of the offer, messaged the real Luna on Instagram, who confirmed that she was being scammed. When that failed, Sharaban switched tactics. Now pretending to be a female beauty professional, she offered Khadija a free cosmetic treatment in exchange for the promotion of her salon. This time, the offer sounded genuine, safe, and Khadija agreed to meet with her. On August 16th, 2022, Sharaban and her boyfriend drove to Eppingen in their black Mercedes and met with Khadija for the first and last time. The victim got into their car, expecting to be taken to her beauty appointment. Instead, they drove her to a secluded forest area between Heilbronn and Ingolstadt. There, the two killers struck Khadija in the head and viciously stabbed her 56 times, disfiguring her face to mask any differences between victim and killer. By all outward appearances, Sharaban seemed to be leading an ordinary life. So what on earth inspired her to take someone else's in cold blood? Well, although Sharaban's Instagram feed made her life seem perfect, behind the carefully curated selfies was a storm of personal problems. Conflicts with her family, caused by her failing marriage, and a strong desire to vanish, to fake her own death and go into hiding. By killing someone who looked like her and leaving the body in her own vehicle, Sharaban hoped that her family, and indeed the world, would believe that she was dead. Her husband would take the heat, while she and her boyfriend started a new life elsewhere. And yet, despite spending months planning the scheme, neither Sharaban nor her accomplice considered that the police would test the victim's DNA. They also naively assumed that Khadija didn't have any loved ones who would report her missing. Following a review of the recovered chat logs, investigators learned that Sharaban had also tried to hire a contract killer to eliminate her former brother-in-law who opposed her plans for divorce, going so far as to give the hitman a €5,000 deposit. The job was thankfully never carried out. If that weren't enough, in the lead up to their trial, her boyfriend Shakir tried to hire a fellow inmate to murder key witnesses. Again, the plan fell through. The trial, which began in 2023 with all witnesses still breathing, lasted nearly a year and involved over 50 days of testimony. Prosecutors laid out how Sharaban had messaged multiple people on Instagram before settling on Khadija, describing her in messages as the ideal doppelganger. In January 2025, both Sharaban and Shakir were sentenced to life. The court classified the killing as being of particular gravity, meaning that parole, which is usually considered after about 15 years in Germany, likely won't be granted. This case is a grim reminder of how social media, while connecting people, can also be used as a hunting ground. It's hard to comprehend the coldness required to scroll through profiles, compare faces, and think to yourself, yeah, this one could die in my place. No doubt there are several candidates living ordinary lives in Germany, completely oblivious of how close they had come to being Sharaban's target, all for the simple crime of looking like her. On the afternoon of July 22nd, 2024, 14-year-old Amelia Huerbai was out shopping with her mother when she received a call from her 15-year-old friend, Melak, inviting her to a sleepover in Landskrona, a small town in Scania, Sweden. It was being hosted by a girl that she had never met, but Melak assured her that another girl, 13-year-old Rafaela, would also be there. The trio had met at SIS Hässleholm, a foster home where they had spent much of their youth, and though they had had their differences at the institution, they had stayed in contact after their placements finished and had become close. Amelia had been the target of bullies at Hässleholm because of her soft nature, and as such, she didn't have many friends her age. She didn't want to let the two she had down, but the journey was a long and unfamiliar one, involving a bus ride and 2 trains. She had just moved into her mother's new house in Tollarp no more than 10 days earlier, and was concerned about taking the wrong route. Melak continued to pressure her over the phone, repeatedly telling her to hurry up. In a tizzy, Amelia asked her mum for directions and set off to pack her overnight bag. She brought with her the usual supplies: a blanket, makeup remover, extra clothes, as well as a gift card that she had received for her birthday. Her plan was to give it to her friends, who she knew had been dealt a rough hand. During her journey, Amelia sent her mother a text. "Sorry, Mum, for behaving badly because I was stressed. I love you, and you are my life." Accompanying the text was a video of herself on the train, showing off her makeup and fake nails that she had applied during the journey. Anna shared it to her Instagram story. The caption read, "My beautiful, on her way to her first pyjama party." This Instagram video was the last that she would ever receive from her daughter. Amelia never returned home. Her body was found in an industrial area the following day, lying in a wooded area just off a pedestrian path, partially concealed by branches. Her injuries were immediately apparent: 32 stab wounds, mostly to the torso and legs. Silver tape bound her wrists and ankles. A strap was also wrapped loosely around her neck, concealing further puncture marks. It quickly became apparent that Amelia's 2 quote-unquote friends, Melak and Rafaela, had been boasting in a group chat about taking her life. They even shared recordings of the murder, which showed them taunting their victim with a knife while she struggled. Melak and Rafaela were arrested. At first, they denied killing Amelia, but under questioning, their story crumbled apart. According to investigators, Melak lured Amelia to the rail yard, telling her that a boy she liked wanted to meet her there. When they arrived, Melak coughed twice, a signal for Rafaela to emerge from hiding. She wore a homemade mask over her face, but Amelia recognized her immediately and ran to give her a hug. Instead, she was punched in the face. Accounts differ on small details, but both girls agreed that Amelia fell to the ground and Rafaela climbed on top of her, hitting her repeatedly. The girls bound and gagged Amelia with tape and took turns stabbing her with a hunting knife. Rafaela admitted that she had delivered the fatal blow. The pair then fled the scene, throwing Amelia's overnight bag into the sea. The next morning, Rafaela called Amelia's phone 12 times and sent her a text at 7 a.m. "Rest in peace, my sweetie. I love you. I'm so proud of you." It's not clear why she did this. The 2 killers initially tried to claim that their actions weren't premeditated. They described how their plan to scare Amelia had gotten out of hand. However, phone records showed that the duo watched a snuff film prior to meeting with Amelia, in which a person had their throat cut, and that they had deliberately stolen the duct tape and knife from a dollar store earlier that day. Though many online have speculated whether they were jealous that Amelia had finally moved back in with her mother, official court documents state that their motive was revenge. Apparently, Amelia had made a comment about Rafaela's brother during their time in foster care, a comment which Rafaela perceived as an insult. She had been simmering ever since. When asked if she felt any regret for her actions, Rafaela coldly replied, "Sometimes I think I should, but mostly I don't." As for Miluck, she had passively gone along with the plan, claiming that she was scared of what her accomplice might do if she refused, though text messages between the two indicate that she consciously chose to assist Rafaela. Psychological evaluations showed different personalities, cold dominance versus fearful compliance, but neither was considered mentally ill. In court, Miluck denied murder, but admitted to aggravated assault and robbery for stealing Amelia's bag. Rafaela, appearing via video link, also denied murder, but prosecutors were clear. Both girls had planned and carried out the killing. In February 2025, both girls were found guilty of Amelia's slaying. Miluck was sentenced to closed juvenile care for 2 years and 2 months, while Rafaela couldn't be punished due to her age. Sentences were limited by Swedish juvenile law, sparking debate about whether the justice system is equipped to handle crimes of such brutality committed by minors. Amelia's mother, Anna, said that she wasn't allowed to see her daughter's body. She described Amelia as deeply kind, empathetic, and always willing to help people, often at her own expense. "My daughter was an angel who always stood up for everyone," she said. "Maybe this world wasn't ready for her." When the video evidence recorded by Miluck and Rafaela surfaced on the web, sick individuals repeatedly spammed Anna with the footage of her daughter's final moments, and apparently as some sort of dark joke. This case left Sweden stunned, not only because of the savagery of the crime, but because of how young the perpetrators were. This wasn't the work of shadowy strangers or hardened criminals. It was a betrayal carried out by the people, the children that Amelia trusted most. And tragically, what should have been a rite of passage, her first ever slumber party, became her last night alive. A huge thank you to my supporters here on YouTube and over on Patreon, especially my biggest supporters: Holly Lyons, Thomas Almond, Alana Pons, asiamina, Alicia 1996V, Azrael Warakai, Aðalsteinn Traustason, Colin Monsma, Connor Louthan, Emzetz, Farewelltattoosjaxfl, George Lopez, Gina Valera, Gracearchie, Hamish, John Stewart Muller, Lucy Kushinada, Michelle F. Granfield, Mistyblue Longie, Orlando Torres, Peter Lolgerich, Svisso Skivcool, TNS Mum, Terry Ford, and Yokai. Thank you guys so much for your continued support. Remember to hit that like button, and I'll see you all again very soon.